to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
And Hump Day, day after Election Day, or is it?
Well, I mean, we do have a lot of results. There are still a lot of results that are outstanding, which is a little crazy to me, Bill, but I'm going to take the wins we did get last night.
Yes, indeed. Hey, we were expecting the big red tsunami in many cases. This is the shirt I had planned to wear this morning. However, we'll save it for another day. But it does look like Georgia, despite what you might hear from the lamestream media, is a red state because that's where most of it went. Only thing that we're looking at now is the runoff. It looks like it's going to be between Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock.
Yeah, so there's still some work to do, but major wins. Brian Kemp winning. That is a saving grace for, I think, Georgia, if I'm being honest.
And Stacey Abrams actually conceded this time.
Do we have that on record, Bill?
Whether or not she's
Is it recorded?
Whether or not she's still denying the last one, that's a different story. But
yes.
I mean, this is a significant win. This was a smackdown.
Yes, it was amazing. Also, congratulations to Burt Jones, who won Lieutenant Governor, and Carr, and the full slate. Bruce Thompson as Labor Commissioner. I think I'm really excited to see what Bruce is going to do. He wants to automate a lot of things and really make our tax dollars work for us. So very excited about him.
Yeah. Chris Carr, Attorney General, good guy, and is keeping his position as AG, and good on him.
Yes, and then I think there's a lot of races that people don't understand what they do, but Tyler Harper, he is Labor Commissioner. I believe Gary Black.
Taking over here, Agriculture Commissioner.
Agriculture, sorry.
And remember, agriculture is Georgia's #1 product. We export more chickens to the world than any place in the world. And we also have the biggest, I think either the largest or the second largest peanut crop in the world. And pecans, corn, wheat, cattle, everything. As a matter of fact, Georgia is one of the few states that if you separated us from the rest of the world, we could live on our own.
Yes, so
it is amazing.
Good news for us here. Also, interestingly enough, the school superintendent, I think that was really, really important, especially when you look at the results that came in.
Yeah.
The Republican, Richard Woods, actually won 54% of that vote, and it was like 2 million to 1.7. So a pretty big difference. So I think that we're seeing a shift here because of all the stuff we're seeing in the schools. So hopefully we'll see some big changes.
Richard Woods has done an outstanding job as superintendent in Georgia. And as he said, when people bring up, well, here in Chatham County, there's this, that, and he said, I don't control Chatham County. Each one of the counties have their own little entity, but the umbrella that he provides has been nothing short of amazing. He has done a great job as superintendent. He deserved to be reelected and continue to serve in that position.
Yes, and Bill, our friend Buddy Carter, he did win.
Yep. Yes, he did.
But I will say the media here made it sound like Wade Herring was coming for Buddy. And the results that we have received in, I don't really see that.
No.
I mean, we see Buddy winning at almost 60% versus 40%. So pretty significant win still for Buddy Carter here.
Well, he's not only the known entity. Wade, I think, was if he had dipped his toe into the waters, I have no idea. I don't remember him being. When I was still doing my radio show, I got a call when he first got in the race from his people saying, we'd like to be on your show. And the day before, they called up and said, there's been a scheduling conflict. He can't be on your show. And then I never heard from him again because they were going to reschedule.
Yes.
But so dipping his toe into the water maybe for the first time, he did pretty well for somebody that didn't have the name recognition. But Buddy has served us well. And he is a hard worker. He's all over the district. And he deserved to be reelected.
Yes, I will say that if Buddy Carter is invited, he's there. He shows up everywhere. I think I saw him. I couldn't even tell you how many times I've seen him in the past couple months at everything.
You think he's cloned. It's like the late, great Pete Lakakis that used to be our county commission chairman, and he was just one of the great pillars of the community that we just lost in his late 80s. A few months back. And Pete was one of those guys. It looked like everywhere you went, there was Pete. And it's the same way with Buddy now, that everywhere you go, he's there.
Yes.
And we have one of the other races, of course, Ben Watson, reelected to the state Senate. And Ben has done an outstanding job for us there, certainly deserved reelection. We had one of the other,
Ron Stevens.
Ron Stevens,
Ron Stevens.
Is going back to Atlanta, a pharmacist by trade. In fact, he and Buddy are both pharmacists.
Yes.
And he's going back. And one of the things that I was hoping that he was going to be introducing, we talked a lot about drunk driving. And what do you do about drunk drivers? And it seems like every time somebody is hurt in an accident and it says alcohol was involved, the person who was drinking not only caused the accident, but they're the ones who didn't get hurt or didn't get hurt badly. And you see some young mother or dad that's been killed and is leaving a family behind. Tennessee has done something that I think was that could be one of the cures, and that is if you are in an accident and you are responsible and you are intoxicated, whether it's drugs or then we say alcohol, but alcohol is a drug, you have to pay child support until that family, until the kids turn 18. I think that's outstanding. Way to go, Tennessee. I mentioned that to Ron Stevens a few months back, and he said, I'm taking that to Atlanta. So that's going to be one of the things that they're going to be doing under the Gold Dome here in a couple of months.
Perfect. And then Jesse Petrie, of course, is going back. He ran unopposed, but happy to see that we have a big Republican slate going back into office here in Georgia.
We do, and Georgia will retain its Republican leadership in both the House and the Senate, and also in the governorship. So way to go, Georgia.
Yes. Thank you for showing up. And, we still will probably have a runoff, so there's still some work to do, Bill, but I think that we can get Herschel Walker over the line there.
This is the thing that I don't understand, Brittany. The split voting. When you have with Brian Kemp winning as big as he did, you would think that why would you not vote for the Republican senator as well, which means Herschel Walker should have been over 50% of the vote and going to Washington and saying farewell to Mr. Warnock. He can go back and preach his Communist Manifesto in his church up there in Atlanta.
Well, I think part of the issue, too, Bill, is that they've been able to paint Warnock as this pastor who's compassionate.
Oh,
and,
give me a break.
I know, Bill, but they've been able to do that, especially with them having the media on their side. Also, they painted Herschel as, a wife beater and a kind of a crazy person, honestly. Mm-hmm. So unless you've met Herschel Walker and really listened to his speeches and really heard what he's about and followed his life a little bit, I don't think you would understand that, guess what, he's human, but he has always tried to do the right thing, and he loves America.
He hasn't tried to hide it.
No.
And he has turned his life around. He has admitted what happened was a mistake. One of the dirtiest things that the Warnock campaign did, and there's a list, was showing Herschel's former wife saying he put the gun to my head and that sort of thing. They photoshopped that in what we can do in the media now with all the special effects. He was sitting next to her when she was saying that. And they didn't go on to say to finish the sentence where she's saying, but he overcame that. We're now good friends. Everything's fine. And he's sitting right next to her in that shot. I wish if the Republicans, I keep telling them, for God's sakes, grow a backbone, will you? They should have gotten that video and put it on and said, this is what has happened. This is how they're lying to you. Because they don't finish the sentence, they don't show you the real video, and that is something that the Republicans need to learn in a hurry, especially with this runoff coming, because we need the Senate as well as the House, and the House is kind of still up for grabs. This red tsunami we were hoping for, even a red wave, hasn't exactly happened like we wanted it to. And Brittany, do you think maybe it's a complacency of some voters saying, well, it's going to be such a big landslide victory, I ain't going out to vote today?
I think that's the goal of the media, right? To
Yes.
disenfranchise us. Everyone will show up, it will be fine, I don't need to go. No, you do need to go. Everyone needs to go out and vote. But I also think you look at some of the other big wins we've had in the country, and Ron DeSantis. Mm-hmm. He's bold. He tells it how it is. There's none of this slickery from that we see from a lot of other politicians. And I think that's how you win, Bill. You have to be bold. You have to be aggressive. And I don't think you have to be aggressive in a way that you're tearing someone apart, but I think that you have to be truthful and you have to call people out on their actions and things that they've done. And Ron DeSantis, he has been the master of this, and he won Miami-Dade County. How does that happen? I mean, you have to find these candidates that are willing to be that bold and that brave, and you will win people over.
I think once they find out how Hispanics have started leaning Republican now, that the Democrats may even be in favor of finishing the border. So when they say that, because that was one of the things I said, that, the Democrats will close that border just as soon as they find out that the Hispanics and all that are coming in are going to be voting Republican. All of a sudden, that Vince is a great idea.
We'll see what happens. I don't know. I think that they're still thinking that they can manipulate people into thinking like they think and not thinking for themselves, which I think we've seen over time. And the big news coming out of this election, too, is that we had Gen Z show up. And Gen Z is not exactly a conservative generation. So,
and you still hear the "Let's Go Brandon" chants at the college football games. So that is a smackdown on Joe Biden and the Democrats altogether. So there's lots of encouragement that we can take from this, even though we're very disappointed, especially in Pennsylvania. How stupid can you be?
I think that there's some big questions I have in Pennsylvania, and one of them is just how they've decided to redo their voting. And also, there were some things that happened yesterday, Bill, that I think when we get back from the break, we'll kind of dive into a little bit deeper. But you saw shenanigans going on in Pennsylvania and in Arizona. Arizona was crazy yesterday, and I think, they knew something was going to happen in Arizona. They thought maybe they would create a traffic jam or something because of the game day voting. And maybe as Republicans, we're learning some really hard lessons right now. And one of those is that maybe early voting isn't that bad because, we wouldn't have had to deal with the shenanigans that we did yesterday if early voting had been more prominent. But then you hear on the election integrity side that, you have to outdo the cheat. So it's really hard to distinguish what the best thing is to do. But yesterday in Arizona it was crazy.
I'm still in favor of same day voting.
Yes.
Just one day. You have election day. You don't have election month. And I think that's if Florida can get their votes all counted by 9:30 at night, there's no reason why the other 49 states can't as well.
I don't disagree with you, but I think if we're going to play by certain rules, we need to figure out a strategy as Republicans, because I think that we are learning some hard lessons today. So we will dive a little bit deeper into that when we get back, Bill.
We'll talk about how Republicans need to be more united next.
Okay, so we're going to hold off on that break for just a minute.
There's 159 counties in the state of Georgia. And since I got into this race, I've been visiting almost every one of them just to hear from the people. They know I'm a winner. They know that I work. Well, the way I'm different is I'm not a politician, never have been. I'm a country boy that grew up in Georgia. I understand Georgia, and I'm going to fight for Georgia. We got to get this country back together. We got to support our police. We got to support our military. Most of all, we got to support our citizens. But what I am going to do is listen to the people. So I'm going to get out here and I'm going to work for you. And I say what I'm going to do, and I do what I'm going to say. And we're going to make things happen.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Hump day after the election, except in some places.
Yes.
It's still going on. One of the things that we had said just before the break, I was talking about uniting Republicans. The never-Trumpers and the rest of the Republicans have to get on board with each other. There is no such thing as the House divided, because as Abraham Lincoln pointed that out 150 years ago, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And these never-Trumpers and the other Republicans have to get together whether they like it or not.
Well, and I think we just need to talk about and focus on the things that we agree upon. And I think that we We believe in, less government. I think that's something that most of us can agree on. And I think with less government, we have more control of our lives, and that's ultimately what Republicans want.
Oh, by the way, before we go any further, we do need to mention we got some weather situations that we really need to talk about, because all of a sudden this tropical storm seemed to pop up out of nowhere. It's threatening Florida. It's going to be threatening us. We're not going to get much residual effects from it. They did, however, move the Veterans Day parade from Friday to Saturday because of the inclement weather. They thought it may still have inclement weather on Saturday as well. So we have Veterans Day coming up day after tomorrow. We'll have a special edition of Get Real America for that, and we'll be talking to some outstanding veterans and people who have served our country honorably and bravely. But so keep an eye on the weather in the tropics, and we'll keep you posted here as well.
Yes, and these things seem to come out of nowhere, Bill. I'm trying to think, is it Natalie or Natasha, or what storm is this? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. This really is strange, because normally here it is early November. We usually, now obviously hurricane season does run till the end of November, but we rarely have a storm. We rarely have storms in November. We've had a couple of them in the last 2 or 3 years, and this one just seemed to all of a sudden just form. It wasn't like one of these waves coming off. You usually see those waves weeks in advance that come off of the west coast of Africa. Didn't see this one.
No. So remember to prep yourself for all the water that we may get, and make sure, I like to pull in all my furniture from outside, just so there's stuff not blowing away and things like that.
If there's a blessing on anything else, we could do without the wind damage or something like it. We do need the rain. The Savannah area is something like 8 inches behind for the year, so we could use the rain. There's no doubt about that. We just don't need it all at once.
Right. I would take it over a few days.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
So we'll keep you, and you just keep an eye on the tropics. We have all that in. We'll have all the information for you up on our website as well, granewsmedia.com. Tell all your friends.
Yes. And so going back to, big election yesterday, Bill. Going back to that, some of the stuff that I saw was very interesting. I believe we have a clip of a news outlet saying, "Trust us, don't stay off of social media." I thought that was quite interesting, and I think we have a clip of that if we want to take a look.
Man, we're keeping an eye on that one.
That's good. But you see, that's our first votes, and that's the wonder of democracy, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. And I wanted to point that out to be a little bit of the crank in the room following Breonna there. Stay off social media, people, if you're trying to figure out, are there really issues with votings? Trust your local officials. Trust us here. Trust a news source that you know and trust to be honest about this. They're doing their jobs and they're doing it right. So what was Breonna just talking about? She was talking about Cobb County, Georgia. That is right up here, just outside of Atlanta. It matters, right? It's 7%.
Don't trust social media.
No,
don't believe your lying eyes.
Trust the Communist News Network, where they stand there and say, you can see it's mostly peaceful as the Chicago fire is going on behind them.
They have not done themselves any favors, Bill.
Yeah, that's for sure. Trust your gut.
Well, I think also social media has offered an opportunity for us to see video from all over that we wouldn't be able to see otherwise.
Exactly.
And the media would be able to decide what they were willing to show and what they weren't willing to show. So I think it was important that we do have access to other things now, and we can see videos from all over this country.
They still can't get over it. They still think that, as Ted Koppel says, that people like Sean Hannity and all are dangerous for America because they don't have control over the narrative anymore. It is there's too many other places where you can go and you can do your own research and you can get video, not only the video that the media wants you to see, you might be able to get the entire video, which changes the dynamic completely.
Absolutely, Bill.
I go back to the Rodney King incident all those years ago. I was still doing television at the time. NBC, I was at an NBC affiliate here, and they actually sent down the entire video of the Rodney King incident, and it turns out that Rodney started all this. Now, it got out of hand at the end, but he was resisting arrest, and that's when it got out of hand. There were two other people in the car who were also people of color, and the police didn't pull them out of the car and start beating them. Rodney King was going like 80 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour residential zone. That's the reason the cops stopped him. They didn't stop him because he was black. They didn't beat him because he was black. He was resisting arrest. And when I pointed that out to a group of high school students here, I thought I was going to have to get bodyguards to get out of the place because because that's all the narrative that they had seen. They just saw the police kicking him, and I got these arguments like, "Well, we saw what we needed to see." Oh, really? So if I started a fight with you, and you started fighting back, and the principal walked in the room and saw you beating on me, and takes you to the office and suspends you from school, and you say, "Well, you didn't see, he started it, so I saw what I needed to see." And that's what the media shows you. They show you what they want you to see. They even make up stuff. If you'll recall the General Motors, and this is good. This is what I'd be telling the Republicans to do. The same thing that General Motors did when 2020 Dateline on the National Barak channel did a feature on side saddle gas tanks of pickup trucks from General Motors that they said exploded and burned in car accidents. And when hit from the now the side saddle gas tank wasn't the best idea that General Motors engineers ever came up with, but NBC was trying to do it to show you what happened, and finally they couldn't get it to do it normally, so they put little flares or firecracker type devices underneath the car that had the side saddle gas tank so that it would explode. And General Motors got that, it sued NBC News, and Stone Phillips lost his job over it.
That wasn't, how big of a story was that, Bill?
It wasn't very big after it came out. The side saddle gas tank was a big story, but when it came out that they had actually rigged the video to make it look like this happens all the time, that's when the Vigoro hit the Mixmaster. So,
yeah, I don't know how you can. It's hard to trust the media, and
it
also
is.
just. I mean,
and you should be able to. I mean, we're supposed to be the watchdog. We're not supposed to be the lapdog. And right now, the media is in bed with the Democrats. There's no. If you look at if you look at the management, from news directors and on down, most of them have been. In fact, the president of NBC News at the time, Brittany, had been Ted Kennedy's former press secretary.
Oh, really?
So, it goes on today. Jake Tapper has connections all to the Democratic Party, and we have the list just goes on and on and on.
Well, that's kind of how they get their jobs at these news networks, isn't it? They come out of these administrations and end up on CNN or MSNBC or one of those stations. It's very interesting, Bill.
Back to the election and some of the things that were on the ballot, including T-Splost. Where do we stand there, Miss Brittany?
As far as I know, at this point in time, it is being voted no, but we don't have final numbers in. And I will say that Raphael Warnock just dropped below 50%. So that's exciting. So we're at 48-49 right now in that race.
Good news in that department.
Yes,
but
yes.
But once again, here in Georgia, you have to get at least 50% of the vote in order to win the election.
Yes, which, how do you feel about that, Bill? Do you like it? Do you not like it?
I do not. You win, and that's it. In fact, that is the reason that David Perdue is not in the Senate instead of the empty suit John Ossoff, because in the regular primary, he won by something like 40,000 votes over Ossoff. And when it came time to do the runoff, but he did not have 49% of the vote, or 50% of the vote, because the Libertarian, once again, had thrown a monkey wrench into things and siphoned off about 3% of that vote, which would have put David over the 50% mark, and we wouldn't be putting up with all this nonsense and worried about which direction the Senate's going to go. Speaking of which, this was a race that was not even talked about, and I was when they showed the numbers, and I can't, once again, New York, shame on you. Chuck Schumer was up for re-election. I didn't know Upchuck was up for re-election, and he won by 78% of the vote. It was
New York, you get whatever you deserve.
Boy, don't you though? Yeah, electing Kathy Hochul to be governor. Have you lost your minds? And also Gretchen Whitman in Michigan, reelected. And Pritzker in Illinois. Illinois has just passed a law. You better not set foot in Illinois if you unless you go in with an Abrams tank and a bulletproof vest, because they've just they are enacting that will go into effect in January this law that said it's okay. You don't need bail. You don't need anything of that nature.
It's a free for all. You are going to live in a crime-ridden place, and I hate this for people that live there, but you know what? Like, if you have a problem, people need to get out and make change. And and quit moving out of these places, moving to Georgia and making our state more purple and more blue.
Yeah. We want you to come here, but don't bring your politics with you.
Yeah, well,
people in New York, you voted for more people getting pushed in front of subways, stabbed or shot and killed on subways. That's what you voted for. And you have voted to keep your schools closed or whatever, continuing to wear these ridiculous masks. I had to go into a government building yesterday, Brittany, and they still had the required mask mandate.
What building?
There was a VA, and there was also, last time I was at the Social Security office, I had to go in to sign up for a particular Social Security program. And
so it's federal buildings.
They're still requiring masks.
In federal buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still drinking the Kool-Aid.
I don't understand why. I don't really.
Oh, I do. It's control, and they don't want to follow the science. These people that keep telling us that we're science deniers. So we're in as far as the elections go, you're going to have to learn to vote, and Republicans, you are going to have to learn to unite. And then when you do, you need to grow a backbone.
Well, so this is an interesting bill. I think we only had in the state of Georgia, we have 6.9 million registered voters. Mm-hmm. And we only had about half participate, maybe a little more than half, so 3.9 participated. So, I mean, we've got to learn to also educate people on what they're voting on, because I will tell you, all of the referendums passed. All of them. So, I think it's rather interesting. I'm glad to see that TSPLOS did not pass here in Chatham County as of now, but we still have some votes coming in. But at this point, I believe we're at 50.68% no, which is good news.
I think concerning about voting and your responsibility to vote, I am of the impression that if you miss 3 election cycles, they should take you off the voting rolls.
I love that. Actually, because
you have to re-register to vote if you're not exercising your right to vote. So only half the people made the decision yesterday on who's running the state, or who's running your city or county. These people control your lives. You need to take this seriously, and just going along and playing along and saying, one of the reasons I think that we're in the position that we are now, and that we have all this communist propaganda and other garbage that's being taught in our schools, is that we had this mentality of it will never happen here. We see it happen somewhere else. Once upon a time, they used to do, there was something, I don't think they do it anymore, they have the All-American City Award.
Oh, I've never heard of this.
Okay.
I know. I'm like, what?
Wow. There was an award for cities. I don't know exactly what all the priority ramifications are on it, but Savannah was elected an All-American City back around 1968. We had no drug problem here. There was no crime problem here. There was crime, of course, there's crime everywhere, but we were elected an All-American City. Columbia, South Carolina, an All-American City, and now. When we talked about drugs when I was in high school, we were talking about Bayer aspirin. We were talking about over-the-counter stuff, sleeping pills. We weren't talking about fentanyl. That didn't even exist. But we weren't talking about heroin or anything of that nature.
And now it's an epidemic, and it's happening in our city, and it's happening all over the country, which is a shame. Because
I said, it can't happen here. And so when it started happening, it wasn't either noticed because these things do happen incrementally. And then when it was noticed, it was like, well, it's just this part of the community, it's just this part of town, it's just this, that, or the other. And we let it happen.
Yes, and we will be talking about how we let it happen after this break.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you guys something. Every time I go out to speak, everybody want a sound bite. I'm going to give you a sound bite really quick. I'm sick and tired of people putting this country down. They want to ask me why I'm running. Let's be real. I'm sick and tired. You look at the economy, you look at the gas prices. You can't buy a grocery now. It's time for us to wake up. It's time for me to get out and fight. Because I'm going to tell you, I love to win. I said, put me in the game, coach. I'm ready to play. If you ever seen me play, I can play. Have you ever seen me fight, I can fight. No matter how hard they come, how hard I can fight. I'm sick and tired of this. Tell your friends to get out and vote. I'm not here to be a politician. I'm here to be a warrior. Protect this country, protect our citizens, and protect our kids. No weapon formed against me shall ever prosper. Boom! That's it, baby!
Reverend Warnock's running a nasty, dishonest campaign. Perfect for Washington. The Reverend doesn't even tell my full story, my true story. As everyone knows, I had a real battle with mental health. Even wrote a book about it. And by the grace of God, I've overcome it. Warnock's a preacher who doesn't tell the truth. He doesn't even believe in redemption. I'm Herschel Walker, saved by grace, and I approve this message. Reverend Warnock.
Good morning and welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Happy Wednesday, hump day, and the day after Election Day, or is it?
Well, they're still counting, Bill.
Yeah, they are, in South Carolina, right across the river from us. Way to go, Tim Scott, reelected. And he said, by the way, I don't know what his future plans are, but he said this is going to be his last term.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I find it really refreshing when someone says, you know what, I'm going to do this amount of time and then I'm done. But also, it has to be very, very taxing to be a senator, especially when you're being attacked all the time, and what that puts your family through. And you know what I mean? I just think
I do.
I think
especially being a black conservative, because you're not supposed to think that way. In other words, if you have a skin color, that's supposed to be how you think. No, that's not how it works. So get that through their thick skulls on the left. Also, Henry McMaster, about to become the longest-serving South Carolina governor in history, because he took over about halfway through Nikki Haley's second term, and now he's been reelected and can run again. So he could be South Carolina senator for over 10 years. Or governor, rather, for 10 years, yeah. Senator would be nice, too.
Yeah.
But I don't know what Tim Scott's future plans are. He has been mentioned as a presidential candidate at some point, and God knows he'd be a great one. Also, we had Nancy Mace winning re-election there. And by the way, McMaster beat the lady the guy that Nancy Mace beat the last time, Joe Cunningham.
Maybe he's not a good candidate. I'm just saying.
Yeah, just like a sort of Bozo O'Rourke, Beto O'Rourke out there in Texas. He's good. He and Stacey are both good at losing elections.
I don't understand people that continue to run these races. They're very expensive, and it makes you wonder where they're getting all this money from and why they think it's, why they need to run for everything. I mean, it seems like Beto O'Rourke has run for everything. Stacey's run for a lot of offices. I mean, you have a lot. I don't get it, Bill. I number one, I don't like to lose, so that's one thing. But I don't understand how you just keep running for these races, losing, and then you still have money to run for the next race. Any ideas on that?
I have no. I really don't. But the money is there. And it comes from the Hollywood left and also the George Soros. I want to know where the George Soros Republican equivalent is. So
we don't have one.
And pour some money into the Republican campaigns. We just like the that's one of the things we need to analyze is how the Republicans have gone about their campaigning and the money that is being spent on the national level to get Republicans elected, because Governor Murray 2 years ago in New Jersey won re-election by the hair of his chinny chin. And what happened there, and even Sean Hannity and others mentioned on the air, said if we had paid more attention to that race, we could have had the I don't remember the Republican gubernatorial candidate that was running against him, but it was very, very close, and New Jersey could have been turned red from that standpoint because I think that's the highest tax state in the country, and why they reelected Phil Murray, I have no idea. But they did. But it was really, really tight. And had the Republicans paid more attention to that race, they could have won it. And that is, I think, one of the biggest secrets. And when we go back to saying that the Never Trumpers have to be reunited with the rest of the party, and whether you like Donald Trump, all you have to do is look at the results. So yesterday, when people voted for Democrats, so you like inflation? You like high gas prices? You like unemployment? You like not going after our own oil and yet begging our enemies to sell us theirs? You like high crime rate? You like the fact that people are getting pushed in front of subways? Okay, you don't have a subway in your city or even state. You like people getting stabbed and shot on the street, and then the person who did it is back out on the street within hours while the police that arrested him are still doing the paperwork? That's what you voted for yesterday. That is what the Democrats have stood for. They're not standing for law and order. They're standing for defunding the police. They're standing for buying somebody else's oil or the green raw deal that they're trying to sell us, that somehow solar and wind are going to be the answer to our problems. Well, just ask the people of California how that's working.
I don't know if you've been to California lately. It's not working out very well, Bill.
No, it isn't.
It's really hard to go to California, honestly. It's overrun.
And it's a shame. I mean,
it's a beautiful state.
Liberals have ruined everything that they have put their hands on. They ruin everything. California was a state that reelected Ronald Reagan, elected him and reelected him. And look at it now. California is one of the most beautiful pieces of real estate in the world. The drive down Big Sur is breathtaking. The sequoias going through the national parks and the sequoias are absolutely, it is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. So is Oregon and the Northwest. It is gorgeous out there.
Portland was one of my favorite cities, and I don't think I don't know that
cesspool.
I don't know if I would recognize it now.
It is. No, you wouldn't. San Francisco, same way. One of the greatest cities in the world, a cesspool. Los Angeles, not one of my favorite cities, even it was nice, but a cesspool. And where are all the environmentalists when you've got these homeless people that are defecating in the streets, going in, and you have raw sewage going in to the rivers and then the ocean? Where are all the environmentalists on this? You're lying. You've been lying to us. You're not an environmentalist at all.
You're activists.
Yeah.
That's all that is.
The same way with these stupid windmills. They are extremely inefficient. They are causing all sorts of damage to the environment, including, of course, killing bats. Bats are great for us. They eat millions and millions of insects on a nightly basis. Now, if you want the locusts to come back and take over and eat the corn crops and everything else instead of us eating them or going into our gas tank, we need to change that with this ethanol garbage. But if you want the insects to take over, keep those windmills going along. They're also the windmills that they have offshore in the ocean are screwing up the fishing spawning grounds. There's all sorts of environmental damage, and they're extremely inefficient. And they can only be used at a certain time, like the gentleman who said he was driving through Oklahoma a few months ago, and he noticed that all the windmills, it was real breezy, and he noticed none of the windmills were working. And he finally asked somebody, an engineer, he said, well, if the wind blows over 40 miles an hour, we can't run them. Excuse me?
Yeah. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And the wind blows over 40 miles an hour in many cases in Oklahoma. As hard as that is to believe.
Well, I think that that's also what you get when you see government intervention into, an area of the private sector.
Yes.
When they start giving out these subsidies, that's what you get, Bill. You get these inefficiencies, and you get these people in these states building all of this infrastructure that really isn't reliable.
I give you Solyndra.
I don't know what that is. Solyndra.
Yeah, that was the that was one of the Dalai Lama's greatest hits.
Oh.
When they started and that was out in California as well. When they started the solar panel
Okay.
company, and it was a disaster. They were trying to sell a solar panel. It cost them like $9 to make one, and they were trying to sell it for $6. Billions of dollars was lost on that plant. They finally closed it down and then destroyed this. And then rather than just give away the solar panels somewhere, they destroyed them. It was just an unmitigated disaster. Solar is not the answer. Wind is not the answer. You might want to try a little bit of both, but for the most part, oil, petroleum is the answer. We have plenty of it. It is not destroying the planet. So these people that want to go in and glue themselves to walls at museums and throw paint on priceless artwork, have at it. But we need it. Petroleum, by the way, and they call it fossil fuels. Okay, let's get rid of that term as well. It isn't fossil fuels. There weren't that many dinosaurs, okay? We had plenty of them, but we'd have run out of petroleum a long time before that. It is a natural product that God has given us that the earth produces. We have absolute proof of that. Geologists will tell you that. They've given up oil wells that ran dry in Texas maybe 60 years ago. They've gone back recently, and the well is full again. We didn't have dinosaurs in the last 60 years deteriorating and turning into oil within the last couple of decades, okay? It is a natural byproduct of the earth. It is extremely efficient. It works very well. And as the late, great Rush Limbaugh, God knows I miss him, said, as soon as you can get a 747 off the ground with solar panels, I'm with you.
And that hasn't happened yet, Bill.
No, it hasn't.
But I think the other thing is we need to be better at owning the language. I think that that's something that they have been really good on the left about owning language. So fossil fuel, changing that terminology and when it comes to oil, I think could serve us very well. We haven't learned this game very well yet, but I think that it's something that we need to also participate in because they've changed the meaning of different words, which has consequences, Bill. So I think that we need to get better at marketing and rebranding on the Republican side.
That's the next project.
Yeah, always a project, right, Bill?
Yeah, there sure is.
And we'll be talking more about the elections when we get back.
First of all, what I can do to make things better is bring people together. I love this country. I believe in peace through strength. If we have no strength, we're gonna have no peace. I believe in backing the blue. I believe in the Constitution. I believe that everybody should have a chance to have their faith. Do we have problems? Yes. Can we solve them? Yes. Georgia is my family. The United States is my family. So I'm gonna fight and take care of them. I'm Herschel Walker, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
Hump day, day after the election, and still some of them going on, and some we just don't understand.
One of those races being, I just saw in Alaska, you guys probably see me looking down at my computer. I'm tracking some of these races, and one of the ones that caught my eye was the Alaska race with Sarah Palin. She is only reporting in at 26% of the vote. I think that this ranked choice voting really does hurt you.
Now, you got to explain to people what that is, because it makes no sense whatsoever. It's like when golf decided it needed a different scoring, so the Stepford system or whatever it was, where you got points for instead of how many shots you made. I was like, do we really need this?
Well, what happens is that you can do ranked choice voting. So you can say Sarah Palin won, and then you could put the Democrat as number 2, and then rank because they have also it looks like a jungle primary as well, or a jungle voting system, because they also have another Republican in that race. But so you could rank him 3rd, and so if everyone ranked the Democrat 2nd, they could be in first place. So I know it's a weird thing. If they get more ranked choice voting like that, then Bill, it's a messed up system.
I'll give you Boardwalk and Park Place for the railroads and the electric company and the utilities.
Yes.
What?
Well, here's the other thing. It's harder to track these elections when they do that. It makes the voting system much more complicated. And I think that that's the thing, Bill. We need to get back to simplifying this voting system. It should be easy. 1 vote for this person, check. That counts as 1. I mean, it needs to be 1 and done.
Exactly.
So very surprised to see this in Alaska, because guess what? The Democrat is winning by a 47% margin. So 47 versus 26, and then the other
Sarah Palin, who was an outstanding governor.
She's beloved in Alaska, so I don't understand it. A lot of weird stuff that we've seen, Bill, in these races that just don't make a whole lot of sense, but that's one race that really caught my eye. And I do have to mention, because I am from the state of Utah, that Mike Lee has won re-election, which is very exciting.
Is he? Oh, thank God.
He is a fantastic senator, and the person running against him was terrible, so very excited to see that. I know that...
And I think Ron Johnson squeezed it out in Wisconsin. That was
yes.
another race that shouldn't have been that close either.
Yes, it's very surprising, Bill. But, we are seeing some good wins, and I'm hoping, we find out soon if we're able to claim that we have taken back the Senate. But, it might depend on this runoff that we're probably going to have here in Georgia. So
it comes down to Georgia again. Now, that's what we need, is the spotlight. So we'll have 4 more weeks here in Georgia of the runoff election that's going to be going on. So you're going to see just as many spots there almost as you are of Camp Lejeune.
Oh my gosh, I don't want to see those commercials anymore.
And by the way, if you didn't know by now about the situation at Camp Lejeune, you just stepped off a flying saucer from another galaxy. Good heavens. How much longer are we going to have to put up with that? The local guys are getting it. It was bad enough seeing about 2 or 3 spots in a commercial break on television. I now hear it on the radio. I'm now getting it on my phone. Jeez.
Yes. I mean, if those commercials are, how much money do you have to run that many commercials, Bill? Jeez.
A bunch. Judging from the fact that all the lawyer ads that we see, the accident business must be real good.
Yes, absolutely. It probably really is. Another race that I just want to mention is the Ohio race. J.D. Vance has won that race 53%, and I really like J.D. Vance. I don't know if you have read his book or anything about his life, but he really is someone that comes from nothing, and he has made something of himself and is a real fighter. And I'm really excited for him to hit the Senate. So, and he defeated. How long was Ryan there? He was there for a very long time.
He was in Congress, yeah. Yeah. He was a congressman, and
he's been in Washington for a long time. So I'm glad he's not going back.
Yeah, he tried to sound like a Republican. If you listened to him, if you looked at his voting record, it wasn't anything close. But every one of these Democrat candidates, even the ones that won, tried to sound like Republicans.
It was amazing how that happened.
How much they were in favor of law enforcement and everything else. Well, that's not the way you voted.
I think that's the other thing. This is why I highly recommend people doing their research and looking at their voting record, because that tells you everything you need to know about a candidate. Because honestly, Bill, I'm probably alone here, but I care about someone's character. I really don't care that 15 years ago something happened and, maybe they did something that they probably shouldn't have. I think we've all been in those situations. So I think giving people grace is very important, because no one's perfect and we don't have perfect candidates. And I really think it's important for us to look at people's voting records and decide if we're going to send them back or not, because, that tells you everything you need to know. They can put any commercial out that they want. It doesn't change the fact of how they vote.
It is one of the saddest things that, and your responsibility as a voter. And this is one of the things we've tried to emphasize. One of the reasons that we think that civics ought to be one of the biggest, and social studies should be one of the biggest subjects taught in school. I did a master's. I got a master's degree on the subject, and my dissertation was that if you eliminate social studies, you leave every child behind. This is when No Child Left Behind was involved when President Bush was in office. But I said, you leave every child behind if you leave out social studies and you don't teach civics and you don't teach what the greatness of the Founding Fathers, the genius of putting together this tricameral government. It's called the Great Compromise. And these guys had knocked down dragouts over this Constitution and over the Bill of Rights. They had all sorts of arguments, and friends became enemies after the Revolutionary War because they had entirely different views of how the country should be established and how it should be run going forward. But they finally came to this. They finally got together and said, "Okay, we will agree on these. We might disagree on a lot of other stuff, but we will agree on these. A tricameral government, so that no one particular branch has more power than the other." And by the way, the judicial branch was supposed to be the weakest of the three, and it's turned out with the Supreme Court and everything else that it's become the most powerful. And unfortunately, and one of the things, Brittany, that they said when they were establishing in this country, and the Founding Fathers said that, this will work as long as you have men, and because only men at that time were really and had political power. But when men, and we could say mankind, are people of character, it's not going to work if you get bad people in these offices. And as when Benjamin Franklin was asked after the Great Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, and a lady asked him out on the street, "Sir, what do we have?" He said, "A democracy, a republic, madam, if you can keep it." That is the big question. It's a republic if you can keep it. So, and what we kept hearing through everything else, and I think people bought the Kool-Aid with all of because you had the Democrats and the media, and I repeat myself, on the side of we're going to lose this democracy.
I don't want to hear that anymore.
We don't have a democracy. It is a representative republic. Once again, going back to Franklin, what's the definition of a democracy? Two wolves and a sheep arguing over what's for dinner.
I don't want to be in the middle of that.
No, you don't. So it is imperative that you vote. Brittany was pointing it out earlier. Only half the people of Georgia voted. Half the registered voters, of course, half the registered voters turned out to vote yesterday. As important as we said this was, we were looking, and all the indications were that the red wave, even the red tsunami, could be coming. Newt Gingrich, as erudite as he is, was talking about a 54-seat, as much as a 54 to 56-seat majority in the Senate. He thought that people, when they got into the voting booth, they would say, Herschel's the guy. I might like Warnock, but I'm not sure. But when he's voting 96% of the time with Joe Biden, he's not voting for Georgia. I loved his commercials and he had great commercials, by the way. These things were really slick and really good. He had a lot of Hollywood money and Hollywood producers behind him, especially when he came campaigning here with communists like Spike Lee. And he's telling you, how much he cares about Georgia, and he's voting for us. When you're voting 96% of the time with Joe Biden, you ain't voting for Georgia. The only thing that I agree with him on was keeping the Combat Readiness Training Center open here, that the idiots at the Pentagon were thinking about closing in April. Which trains just about every fighter pilot in the world that's on our side anyway, here in good old Savannah, and just finishing something like a $58 million state-of-the-art hangar for all of this for all this gear and for all these planes and helicopters and everything that's going to be in here. So you're going to have the ribbon cutting in September for this new facility, and you're going to close it down in April. Brilliant.
Sounds like the government wasting all that money.
We need that combat readiness training center open here, and that's the only thing that I've heard Senator Warnock, along with Senator Ossoff as well. I'll give them credit. They both agreed that place needs to stay open, and I think we've saved it. Buddy Carter along with it with First District, and it's not because it's here in Savannah. It's because the strategic location of Savannah is why we need to keep it open. We're right on the ocean, so planes don't. If this were in Boot-Scuff, Nebraska, for example, it would be nice to have it. But if you were going to deploy planes, they've got to fly over half the country before they even get out to the ocean. Whereas when you're right here, you can be over in Europe or wherever it needs to, or Asia needs to go within hours and not days. And so that saves a lot. We have very little commercial air traffic here like they might have in places like New York and New Jersey and things of that nature. So our planes can go off the coast and they can have a lot of practice and flying time so that they can practice off the coast without interfering with commercial traffic. And we also have an extended bombing range down just below Brunswick. So these guys have a chance to go do practice bombing runs, and good on the people down there in McIntosh County and Glenn County who voted to actually expand that rather than develop it commercially, so that we could have practice runs, practice for our fighter pilots. It is vital. And
especially where we're at with our military right now,
yeah.
Like we need to be prepared, and I think that we are a key location for that.
Yeah, since we're in a proxy war with Russia now, and we have a president that doesn't have a clue, of course, and saying whatever Ukraine needs, we're going to give them. Okay, our military itself needs a lot of stuff, rather than sending it to Ukraine, where we're not exactly sure where that money's going in the first place.
Well, if we're borrowing money, Bill, we should not be borrowing money for anyone except for citizens, because that's our money.
Us.
So I think that if we can't have a balanced budget, we should not be sending money anywhere. Like, we have got to get to a point where it is America first. And I know that sometimes rubs people wrong, but I mean,
if it is, find another country and move there.
Bill and I, we will raise funds to send you to China.
Yeah, boy. So
see how it is there.
By all means. So we'll see you for the Thursday edition tomorrow and a special edition on Friday for Veterans Day. And because of the inclement weather, keep an eye on the tropics. That's up to you. But they have moved the Veterans Day parade, from what I understand, from Friday to Saturday because of the inclement weather that's expected from Tropical Storm Nora or whatever it is.
Yes, and before we go, I do want to commend Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She did win governor of Arkansas, which I love her. I think she's amazing. So
the big
I'm excited about that.
And also John Kennedy in Louisiana. Way to go. I mean, the big smackdown. That's the way it should have looked around the rest of the country. Absolutely.
Did have some big wins, Bill. We're not popping the champagne yet, but we are hoping to pop it in the future. So
indeed. It's still on ice.
Yes, stay with us, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Check us out on YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, and Spotify, Apple, or anywhere you get your podcasts.
And remember, we don't need and anywhere we don't need more electric cars. We need more electric chairs. See you tomorrow.